All episodes of the Real Women in Business podcast reflect the opinions and views of the guest and cast McCrory and do not reflect official policy or position of employers or clients. Thank you. You're listening to the Real Women in Business podcast. I'm your host, Cass McCrory, and in this podcast, we highlight women in all kinds of businesses. For yourself, someone else, full-time, part-time, overtime hustle, together, we will learn from and with one another. And if we get it right, it'll lift us all. Let's get into it. Friends, today we have Sharada Sullivan on the podcast. And this is an easy one for me to talk about because this conversation is epic. We talk about having multiple careers within one company, how to navigate the pivot, being open to disruption and being vulnerable, and how that actually creates space for greater connection. We also talk about intentionality and creating the life that we want and the family structure that we need so that we live the lives we want. This is an amazing conversation. I won't hold you from it another second. Sharada, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you because you were one of the first women that I've gotten to interview here where I know relatively nothing about, which is fun for me because I'm really curious. Looking at your profile, you've got a lot of different experiences that you note on your LinkedIn. I'd love to know a little bit about who you are and what you get to do today.
Yeah, sure. Happy to share. And again, just thanks for having me on. Really, really happy to be here. So I am a finance and operations executive with CBRE, which is a global commercial real estate services firm. I've been here for 15 years, and I'm on what I would consider to be my fourth career with CBRE internally, which is part of why I've stayed for so long with the organization. I also am a very passionate diversity and inclusion advocate. And so I am involved in a couple of different organizations, both internally at CV and externally, where I have the opportunity to try to help drive the conversation and influence diversity and inclusion in different parts of my life. And then last, but certainly not least, I'm also married to a wonderful man, James, who's a stay-at-home dad to our 7-year-old daughter, Elspeth, who will be starting second grade in a couple of weeks.
That's so exciting. Elspeth, what a sweet name.
Thank you. Yeah, she's a smart, beautiful girl.
Second grade is one of my favorite years because I feel like the reading really amps up.
She's an avid reader. It's amazing to me. Graphic novels have become such a craze. We didn't really have that when I was growing up, and it's absolutely her favorite. And so she likes chapter books as well, but she is reading kind of far ahead in graphic novels and getting great exposure to bigger words and bigger concepts that are generating a lot of good conversation for us as a family. So. Yeah.
We had to have a very strict conversation in our house earlier this summer that we don't buy graphic novels because they are consumed so fast. And we're so lucky where we live. We have a great library system. And so you can go to the library, you can get multiple graphic novels, but like she just devours the graphic novel.
Yes, same for us. The library will, result in checking out 10 to 15 books and, 3 days later she's through them all. So, which is fantastic. I would much rather have her doing that than watching TV or other things. So I'm happy to support it, but yes, I wouldn't buy them either.
Yeah, great problems to have.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that they're creating more things for, especially girls in the graphic novel space. I feel like when we were kids, and I'm making an assumption here that we're in the same space, which I'm pretty sure we are, but we didn't have that. Boys got to have cartoons and things like that, but there wasn't literature and content for girls to see role models and everything in different forms of writing.
Yes, there's tons of variety now. And even like the Babysitter's Club novels that I loved growing up are coming back in graphic novel form. They've been reinvented, they're refreshed. She can relate to them. And it's fantastic seeing those characters come to life in a way that she can relate to. And then I have all the history around those same characters. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Lexi and I had a very interesting conversation because I had bought all of the Babysitters Club because I had read them as part of some club where they would mail you books at a time, which I loved. Mail plus books. Couldn't be better. I bought them all on eBay for her because she started reading them. And there's one book, it's one of the first ones where Christy gets the phone line and there's a phone cord.
Yes.
And I had to explain what that was.
Yes. Why she would need her own line and what a cord is. Yeah.
Yes. It was like, wow, we've come some places in the last couple of decades.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have. Yes.
I want to unpack something that you said about having multiple careers within your company, because I want to know more about that and how that unfolded for you, because I think so many times the impulse is, I need a change. And so we look outside. What led you to look inside?
Yeah. So some of it has been, I would say, done to me, or, I've been kind of pulled along, and others I have been deliberate in seeking out the next opportunity. So the way that I would classify the 4 different careers, my very first career at CBE, when I started as an analyst, I was supporting our local Chicago market area, doing accounts payable, revenue recognition, very basic accounting and finance functions. I actually started, I have a marketing and operations degree, not a finance degree. My entire career has been in finance, but marketing and operations degree. And I graduated in 2001. And I had a job offer with PwC. I was going to be a strategy consultant, and I thought I was set for life. That's what I dreamed of doing. And moved to Chicago to live with some friends in an apartment. Grew up in a small town in Indiana, so I was living in the big city, again thinking life was set. And September 11th happened, and all of the job offers got rescinded. And so I'm living in Chicago with rent to pay and no job. So I ended up temping at a law firm. And it was a great experience. There was a beer vending machine. And at that point where I was mentally, it was, I could go in and hit the button and have a beer. And I just thought that was the most amazing thing ever. Not a great long-term career, but a great opportunity out of college, a great transition. And I got recruited into, thankfully, a company called Print Incorporated, where they hired me to do marketing and operations work. And what I loved about that job, I was there for 2 years. I loved the data that we would gather from the client sites. We would put this into a proprietary model, and we would use it to figure out what solutions we wanted to recommend to our clients. And so through that process, I realized that I really didn't want to be in sales and marketing. I wanted to be in a more numbers-oriented career. I had a friend at CBRE, and there was a job opening for an analyst. So she helped me connect with the hiring manager, moved over to CBRE, and I've been there ever since. So, back to my 4 careers, I've had my first career really focused on our local market area, deeply understanding the Chicago market and how we operate the business here in Chicago. And then moved up very rapidly in the company from analyst. Ultimately, 2 years later, I was running operations for the region. It was maybe a $250 million business at that point in time. I was 3 to 4 years out of college, probably a bit too aggressive in my career growth at that point in time. And luckily, they recognized that I had capability and talent, and I was just a bit out over my skis. And so they moved me into my second career, which was in our division, finance and operations part of the organization, where I had a role looking at forecasting, budgeting, variance analysis, and really supporting multiple markets across the US, but in a way that better fit my experience and my skill set at the time. And I was in that phase of my career for the longest period, roughly 8 to 10 years. And again, moved from analyst and ultimately led that part of the organization. So at the end of my career in that group, I was managing a team of 1,500 operations professionals in our 200 offices across the US, managing our division finance organization based here in Chicago, and just had great experience and exposure to what it takes to run a rapidly growing corporation, public company from an operations and finance perspective. And then from there, the third phase of my career, I moved into a project-based role. where I reported into our America's COO. And so it was still operations oriented, but I had no direct reports, moved away from managing a team, and focused on helping us drive transformation within our operations organization. So I partnered with a lot of the people that I had met and partnered with in my prior roles, but now focused on reorganizing different parts of our business, delivering new systems and platforms that would really help us improve our efficiency and ultimately save money that we could reinvest in growing the business. So learned a ton about managing myself, really helping us identify what those deliverables needed to be in order to help move the business forward. And then this latest career pivot I just moved into July 1st. And for me, as I look back over the course of my career, a lot of great experience in finance operations internally for CBRE, no real client-facing experience. So I understand real estate services from behind a P&L. I understand how we operate. I really don't understand how we deliver services to our clients. And so the role that I'm in now is leading a finance team for our North Division within our outsourcing business. And through that, I have the ability to really understand how we support real estate services and provide real estate services to corporations that outsource their real estate function to CBRE. And over the course of this next stint of my career, hopefully we'll be able to interface more directly with our client base.
So this is pretty new still. We're recording this in mid-August and it'll be released sometime in early October. So this is still pretty new ground in this new role. How are you feeling?
I feel good. It's different. So the prior 3 phases of my career at CB have all leaned on the same subject matter expertise that I've developed over the past 15 years. I'm no longer the subject matter expert, and that's very new and very uncomfortable for me. So some of it is familiar, managing a team, forecasting, budgeting. Some elements are very familiar, but the actual business, the outsourcing business is very new to me, and I have a ton to learn. And I knew that walking in, but the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know, and don't even always know what questions to ask to learn more. So I'm having a great time. Everyone's being very patient and willing to spend a lot of time helping bring me up to speed, but I have got a lot to learn. And that's a unique place to be for me in my career up to this point.
I love that we're talking about this because I think so frequently we get to a place in our career where we think, what's the best next step? And it feels like it's just a progression. And this feels like a pivot.
It is for me, yeah.
And it's okay to be in that space of the pivot and say, I'm learning a ton. This feels like I'm being hit by a fire hose and I'm going to be fine. And I want this still. And it's also hard.
Yeah.
Like all of those things can be true at the same time.
They can be. And it's hard when you define success as being able to, as a leader, make quick decisions and move the organization forward. I can't make quick decisions on it. I have to ask for help. I have to phone a friend. Every time something crosses my desk, I have to make phone calls and figure out what it is, what the context is, the parameters around how I should be thinking about the decision. And I'm not quick about anything. And that's, again, very uncomfortable. But it's helping me stretch and learn and grow. And that's exactly what I was looking for. And I've got great support in the leader that I report to, in the division president that I partner with. They knew what they were getting, moving me into this role that I didn't have that expertise or that experience. And they've been very supportive in helping me get access to it, as have others within the organization. So the team that I manage has been great about it. The leaders that our alliance directors in the field that I'm helping support in this role, that my finance organization supports, have been, very open. Come in, we'll talk about the business, help you understand what's happening. So it's been a great experience, but very new for me.
Is how you're defining success going to shift, or are you just trying to run to it?
I think a bit of both. I'm a driver. I like to get things done, and results matter to me. And I don't think I can change that about myself. So I'm going to continue to try to find ways to have small wins or to deliver results and make an impact on the business right away. But I also recognize that the best thing that I can do right now is listen and learn. And there are a lot of smart people on the team. And one of the things that I can do, one of the ways that I can help contribute to the success of the organization is getting feedback and getting that insight from others in the organization who know a lot more than I do, and helping elevate that and bubble it up so that the people around me or above me in the organization can make good decisions and help us advance or help us move the business forward. So I do think it's a combination of me personally trying to deliver some wins, but also playing a role in just elevating the voices that know what we should be doing, that need a platform, and I can help be that voice and be that platform for them as well.
There's a real vulnerability in that.
Absolutely. It's terrifying.
Have you always felt like you could lean into that vulnerability and say, I'm gonna stay with that?
I think so. I think I'm very comfortable being vulnerable. Now that's not to say I'm always good at it. I think, like many women, I am a perfectionist in some ways. I don't enjoy being vulnerable. I want to be really good at everything that I do, but we're all human. We're not all great at everything, and that's just the reality of it. And I think that being yourself and being authentic and being open to the fact that you don't have all the answers allows for deeper connection with people. And I think if we lean on each other and we are open with each other in that way, you can support each other more deeply, and you can actually accomplish more together if you're willing to let people see the cracks.
Yes. We will put this in the show notes. Being open gives us space to have better connection.
Yeah.
Who modeled this for you?
That's a great question. A lot of different leaders at CBRE. My husband has been very vulnerable. Again, he's a stay-at-home dad. He's the type of person that's constantly learning, constantly searching, constantly pushing himself to grow and get better. And so he's been a fantastic model of that for me. But professionally, the leaders that I've worked with, Ed Schreier, the boss that I reported to most recently, is not afraid to say, here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm not good at. I still make the decision at the end of the day, but here's where I'm going to ask for some help. And so seeing leaders at the organization that I work at and in the organizations that I'm a part of being willing to say, just because I'm in the leadership role doesn't mean I have all the answers. That's why you're here, is to help me get to the right answer for the company. I think, again, maybe is part of why I've stayed at the organization.
I think that, and I think this comes from growing up, but I think we have this assumption that somebody knows all of the answers. We come from that place.
Yes.
Certainly somebody knows what it is I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes.
And once we figure out that nobody knows what they're doing ever.
Yes.
It really takes the curtain back. Like, that is the Wizard of Oz curtain.
Yep.
Of adulthood.
That is so true. So I'm going to turn 40 this year in a couple of weeks, actually, in early October. And this year, last year, I would say maybe it started, but definitely this year is the first year I'm owning the fact that I'm an adult. I deserve to be in the room as an adult. I am showing up differently, and just kind of claiming the fact that I'm grown up. I'm here. I've arrived. I still don't have all the answers. I'm never going to have all the answers, but it's as if I've been waiting for someone to kind of pat me on the head and say, "You've made it. You're there. You are an executive. You are a leader." I'm just starting to own it and just claim it. I am an executive. I am a leader. I'm still growing and growing, and I have a lot to learn, but in this moment today, I am an executive. And it's okay that I don't have all the answers. But that's very new for me. I joined an organization called Finance Executives International 2 years ago. Great organization, great platform, great people. But when I walk in the room, still to this day, I don't necessarily feel like I belong. And a lot of that's on me. Some of it's on the organization and the fact, and that's, I'm now a board member and part of the diversity and inclusion committee, and really trying to help the organization evolve and transform from an inclusion and engagement perspective, which I think is really important, because I do think it's a fantastic organization, but we can help it get better at making people feel included and welcome walking in the door. But part of the reason it's a challenge is that the people that have been with the organization have been there for a very long time, and they are all very comfortable with each other, and they have these long-standing relationships. And as someone coming in new to the organization, as an outsider, so to speak, it's hard to break in, and it's hard to get comfortable with how to break in. So again, a little bit of that I put on the organization and changes that need to be made to make the organization more welcoming and more open. But a lot of it also has to do with me just owning that I deserve to be there. And just breaking into the conversation, even if I am uncomfortable with walking up to people that I don't know and talking about whatever it is that, I choose to talk about in that moment. It's okay that I'm uncomfortable. That doesn't mean I don't deserve to be there.
Just because I'm uncomfortable doesn't mean that I don't deserve to be there. That's really powerful. Because I think that's really powerful. I've had the exact same experience, and I feel like sometimes, especially recently, I've been feeling the tug of not belonging because I felt like I wasn't the grown-up in the room, because certainly somebody else is in charge.
Yep.
But then there's also a lot of millennials in the room, and I'm not young like them either. And so I just kind of felt this rub of like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have to pick sides. I think I need to start to be the grown-up in the room, instead of the person that's the nudge. And it's been really interesting.
And how has that worked for you? How has that manifested for you?
I think it's led me to be a better questioner and to hold some space for ideas from other people in a way that I felt insecure not providing the ideas.
Yep. That completely resonates with me. Feeling the need to always have the answers.
Yeah.
If you're questioned, that somehow I'm not a thought leader or a leader in my space if I'm questioned and don't immediately have an answer. In this role that I'm in now, and even chairing the diversity and inclusion committee within FEI, I don't have diversity and inclusion background, right? I'm a woman, but beyond that, right. what expertise do I have? I have no formal training. I've taken some courses online. I read articles, but I don't have any formal training that really gives me the official checkbox. You have the authority to lead this conversation. And again, it's uncomfortable, but who else, right? I mean, we all own the conversation, and if we all are feeling this, then I have every right. I have just as much right. I also have the obligation to educate myself and to learn and to bring other experts into the room and not just kind of go off on a tangent and try to solve it without asking questions and asking for feedback and asking for input from people who do have more expertise. But I can own it and I can lead it from wherever I'm at, and that's okay.
I appreciate that additional piece that you added there, because yes, you are enough to do this in your space today, and you also have a responsibility to learn and do better and evolve. I think sometimes that is my resistance when people are like, you are enough, you already have everything you need to get started and everything. My resistance sometimes comes in when that enoughness feels like, no, you're good as you are, because I want to be ever improving.
Yep.
I relate to that. And I think the time frame is right. I have, obviously I'm in the same age range. I'm turned 39 in like a week. And for whatever reason, 39 feels really big for me.
Yeah.
The work that I do, why I do it, how I do it feels like this is the season.
Yeah.
In a way that it's never felt before. And I wonder if there is something, some people say that it's just happening in the ecosystem of the world right now, right? There's an uprising of people saying, hey, we need to be heard, and how we want to show up in this world really matters, so we better show up. And then I think some of it is just coming of age.
Yeah. I think that resonates for me, that it is partially what's happening in the world around me that is sparking for me the fact that I need to engage differently in the world than I have been, that I can't just keep my head in the sand and assume that everything's going to be okay, that I need to be an active participant in what's happening in the world beyond just my work and my family. So I think that's an element of it. For me also, it is very personal. My father died of cancer last year at the age of 61. And so I think that also just sparks for me that life isn't unlimited, and how you take care of yourself matters. He was very fit, very healthy, but to the extent I have control over what I eat, taking care of myself, I need to be doing those things and not just take it for granted that I'm always going to be, feel as good as I do right now, that there's some work that comes with that. So it's a number of different things that have come to bear for me, external, internal, personal, that have brought me to that realization that, again, I am the grown up at this point, whether I'm ready or not. I've arrived. This is what it feels like. And I just need to kind of go forward from here.
I think that death does bring that into focus in a way that nothing else really can. I'm sorry that you lost your dad.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's obviously a very difficult thing, but he had cancer, and we were able to spend time with him. He was in hospice for his last 4 weeks. And so we were able to spend time with him and really have a lot of closure that we wouldn't have had if it had happened suddenly. So you find ways to feel grateful for how it happened, even though you're not grateful it happened. But it does force you to take stock of what would happen, how you would respond if it happened to you. So if I was the one who had cancer, and my husband and my daughter and my family were dealing with that, are we ready for that? Do we have an estate plan? So, the practical
right.
and the emotional things that come along with that, I think do accelerate maturing a bit.
Definitely. It puts into focus how clearly our time is limited.
It is.
And in so many ways, hospice is an amazing organization that trains people in dealing and helping not just the palliative patient, but the family. And I have so much love for everybody that works in that space, because it is an act of service to the living, in a really real way. I'm glad that you had that time to have the closure.
I am too. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but we all move so fast. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and it's my stepdad is who passed away, but that's who I grew up with. But we all have families. We don't all live in the same area. It forced us. We essentially lived, all of us, at my mom and dad's house for kind of the last 4 weeks of his life, and he had people stop by who were able to say, he likes to joke that he got to, have a living funeral or a living wake, because he got to tell stories, and we were able to record him telling stories and just having these conversations with all of the friends and family who stopped by. And that is priceless time that we wouldn't otherwise have had, because we would have been moving too fast and running all over the place and raising families and having careers. And it's a great thing. Sorry.
No, I feel really, yeah, when I think about the people that I've lost who now are just with me in spirit,
Yep.
I think about what's really important. It puts things in perspective in a way that nothing else can.
It does.
Yeah.
It's crystallizing, and it's
Yes.
what I think is really positive that has come out of it. So again, my husband's a stay-at-home dad, and he is very into learning and education and growing. We've gone vegan, plant-based, which I would not really have considered prior to this, but he's done a ton of research around, again, what can we do to control our health? And it's just been another one of those really unexpected journeys that have forced me to grow and forced me to learn and think about the decisions that I'm making and how I'm impacting the planet, kind of the wake that I'm leaving behind as I move through life here. And so, again, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but at the end of the day, we all die. It is a certain thing. And so if I can focus on what I've learned or how I've gotten positive benefit out of it, that helps me get through every day. And prioritizing taking care of myself and leaving the office to go for a jog or eating a bit healthier and looking at that as like patting myself on the back and celebrating the fact that I am making that decision in the moment to eat healthier and take care of myself, I think is a very positive outcome that has benefited my family as a result of this.
I'd love to talk more about that piece of it, because when you do have a very demanding job, how do you prioritize self-care? What does that look like for you? And I think self-care, I go to the spa once every quarter, we have these very typical things. Self-care for me is listening to very loud, explicit music on the way home from work every once in a while.
Awesome. That's good.
I think it looks different for everybody, but I think when we showcase how other women are doing that self-care piece, it gives other people the opportunity to say, oh, well, I do take care of myself like that.
Yep.
How do you do it?
How do I do it? So I have taken stock of how I spend my time, and I have a spreadsheet because I'm a finance person. And I have just laid out in a typical day, and no day is typical, and I travel and it blows things up. But in a typical day, I've laid out how I spend my time, and I typically wake up at 5:30, get ready for the day, and then I eat breakfast with my daughter. And it's typically a relatively healthy breakfast. It's a smoothie, or it's some sprouted toast with peanut butter or something. I don't know. It's something relatively healthy. Sometimes Elspeth makes it for me. She loves to cook and be in the kitchen, and her dad has taught her that. So she loves to cook for me. So we have that time. And to me, that's Elspeth time, but it's also self-care time. It's a very grounding way to start the day before I get into the insanity of work. And then on my commute, I listen to podcasts. So it could be the Wall Street Journal if I want to be up to speed on what's happening in the world. Disrupt Yourself with Whitney Johnson. I've just added your podcast to the list. I didn't know about it before, but I'm listening to that as well. And then I get into work and I go about my day, but I am trying to make more healthy choices in what I eat during the day. And again, sticking to vegan and or vegetarian options. And then at least 2 times a week, I try to jog. So I leave at 4:30 and there's a free gym in the building. And I just, either I run outside or I go on the treadmill and jog. And if I can do it 2 times during the week, that's a win. If not, I don't beat myself up, but 2 times during the week, I try to get in a jog. And then on the weekends, it's a little easier, a little more flexibility to get out and go for a jog. So those are the things that I'm doing to take care of myself. And I feel better when I do it. I feel stronger. I feel more focused, all of those things. When I don't do it, I notice. And that also helps me prioritize it because I know I can show up better at work. I can show up better for my daughter. I can show up better for the organizations that I'm a part of if I am taking care of myself. And I've seen it work.
I'm curious, and we may cut this. full disclosure, because this is vulnerable even for me. When we get off of track of taking care of ourselves,
Yeah.
why do we do that?
Yeah. And for me, it's usually because there's something that I don't want to deal with. Like, so if I'll hide in work, right? Like if I don't want to go for a jog or whatever, I'll choose to stay at work. And maybe there's a deadline that I need to meet, but a lot of times it's because there's just something happening in my life that I don't want to deal with. And my response to that is eating poorly, watching a lot of TV, or for me, reading a lot of romance novels, which add no value to my life, but that's how I escape.
I would argue that some romance novels do add value to our lives.
You know what? They do. They're a good escape. And I would argue it's better than TV, but there is that. But for me, and my husband and I talk about this a lot, like, he'll say, you haven't lifted your head out of that. And I read on my phone, which is even worse. So it's like an electronic, you haven't lifted your head. Like what's going on? Is everything okay? Because if I'm escaping for, 3 hours a night into a novel, there's probably something happening that I don't want to talk about, or I don't know, it's freaking me out. I have anxiety. So for me, that's usually why I get off track with it. And it could be drinking too much wine, right? I mean, that's another way that we escape.
Totally.
Yeah, but that's what I would say.
I've been really committed to doing morning pages lately. Are you familiar with this practice from Julia Cameron? So Julia Cameron has this book called The Artist's Way. And in it, she provides some direction on how to have a creative life. And even though the work that I do on a day-to-day basis isn't always creative, like I want to have that flex. So I've really loved reading the book. And one of the things that she suggests doing is morning pages. So it's 3 unscripted, just write whatever is in your head, get everything out onto paper. Some days I write, I don't have any idea what to write. I feel very bitter that I'm writing these pages because I have nothing to say and I hate everything and blah, blah, blah. And like, it's not always it's not insightful. I would say 93% of time.
Yep.
But this morning as I was writing, I was asking myself questions about like, what has happened that has taken me off of track personally with my own self-care? Because I recognized that it had happened. I went from, having a glass of wine on the weekend to I get home, I would like a glass of wine, thank you very much,
yes.
to, yes, I'm going to read this cowboy series, all 6 books, please, in the month of July.
Yes.
With a nice amount of time at night, I can read almost a full book.
Yep.
And it's just consumption.
Yep.
Oh,
it's not shopping. It's not, so you're like, how bad is it really?
I can rationalize it.
Yeah.
Right?
This is my self-care. I'm reading this book over here and I'm not doing any harm and I'm escaping and we all deserve that. Right. Yeah.
I went to the library, like it's so like, who could judge me? But in my head, I know, okay, so you're not dealing with something.
Yep.
Because you will not exist in your life now.
You don't want to participate in your life. That's exactly right. And that's what I've started to realize is that when I check out, it's because there's something happening that I don't want to deal with for whatever reason.
That is powerful stuff and a little heavy. We're going to have to journal on this, I think.
It's a little heavy. It is. Yes. Yeah. And it's okay to escape again. It's just when you find yourself escaping more than you're showing up.
Yeah.
Then it's a problem.
I think this kind of ties back to this idea of being the grown-up too, of saying, if I can recognize that is what I'm doing, then I also have a commitment to do better.
Yes. And not being hard on yourself so be kind to yourself, right? It's okay that one week you escape more than another week, right? I traveled last week and I didn't do a great job with my diet or as well as I would like. And I didn't jog as much as I would like. And this week I'm doing better and that's good. And I'm going to celebrate that. And I'm much better at pointing out what I've done wrong than I am about telling myself good job for the things I did right. So that's something that I'm working on, is trying to find a way to be kind to myself and give myself the pat on the back. So yesterday, I finally went in and got blood work done that my doctor had ordered at the beginning of the year and in August. And I went in finally and got the blood work done. And I don't know why I hadn't done it. It was a hassle. Probably I didn't want to see the results. I was worried about what they were going to say, right? I did it. All the results came back yesterday. Everything's good. Such a relief to have it done. And I patted myself on the back.
Well done.
I did good, right? I adulted. I went and did a thing that I needed to do. And it felt great to check the box, but I could have done it 8 months ago and I just didn't.
Sometimes we just don't.
Yeah. And that's okay, but
it is. I think this morning we had a really funny interaction. I have 4 little kids. And 3 of them were up for breakfast this morning. My 11-year-old was still. She's tweening real hard these days. So he was not getting up before 8 o'clock, please. And so my 2-year-old is eating a bagel and he does a really nice job. And I say, Elliot, you're doing a great job eating your bagel. And Braden's eating his bagel. And Braden, this is an excellent job doing your bagel. Braden looks at me and he goes, Mommy, you did a great job on those eggs. Well done. And I was like, well, thank you. Thank you for noticing me doing a good job. I had a real moment of like, yes.
I am doing a good job.
I am doing a good job eating eggs. And
yep.
It's very easy to provide the praise, especially with kids. And my husband too. I feel like I can be very generous with him.
Yep.
To accept it and then to deliver it to myself, that is a much harder task.
It is so hard. And I don't know why it's so hard. I don't know why I struggle with it so much. And that's so, I talk to a therapist every couple of, and this is part of my self-care too, which I didn't talk about. And it's not something I'm embarrassed about. I think it's important. I talk to a therapist every, 6 weeks to 2 months. And this is the kind of stuff that we talk about, is what's stressing me out? What do I have anxiety about? None of it's that deep or, crazy, but it's very helpful to have someone to just talk through this stuff with. And that's what we talked about, is the be kind to yourself. Like, why is it so hard to be kind to myself? And in the way that she framed it, is if it was a colleague who was having that same situation, what advice would I give to them? And so that's the trick that I'm trying to use now, is when I feel like I'm beating myself up or I'm really down about how my day went, I try to put myself in the shoes of, if it was a colleague having that day, what would I say to them? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but
yeah,
it's a tool in the toolkit.
We just need to keep on adding more tools. That's what we need to do. It is a very big toolbox that we get to fill up in this life. So the more tools, and thanks for mentioning that you have the therapy is part of the self-care, because it is.
It is.
The other day somebody said something to me about me having a coach. I have a coach. I love my coach. When I'm not working with her, I find myself really struggling, because I really value having a third party in my head helping me manage me, the outside world, and how I'm engaging with it.
Yep.
I don't know what I'd do without her.
I agree.
Like,
and
we
I
need
can
to
show
have
up better in my relationships because I have this person to talk to who can even just say stuff back to me. And I hear someone else say it and I'm like, oh my God, that just came out of my mouth about myself. And it's just helpful to have a neutral third party.
Yes.
To bounce ideas off of. And I think that's a very healthy thing. And I'm very grateful that we can afford for me to have access to that, because not everyone can.
It's true. I struggle between, I work very hard, and because I work so hard and because I put in what I do and because I do it with intention, I have results.
Yep.
As a business process outsourcing person, that makes great sense to me. I also have immense privilege.
Yes.
And the balance of, I have earned this and I am very privileged.
Yes.
It's a very uncomfortable space.
It's very uncomfortable. I completely agree.
I don't know how to, I guess I'm just going to say to the universe, I'm putting it out there. That feels uncomfortable for me. I don't know exactly how to handle it. I know that I have been very blessed to be born the way that I was born, to the people that I was born to, all of those things. And it's not that I think other people don't deserve to be in the same spot, but I know I deserve to be where I am.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you on that. I think there is a conflict there that part of why I am where I am today is because of what I had access to when I was growing up. It wasn't a question around whether I was going to go to college. I always knew, and I did, and I have a 4-year degree. And it's not that we were middle class. We didn't have a ton of money. There were 5 kids. My parents were both teachers. We didn't have a ton, but we had enough. And even more, we had an expectation that we had 2 parents very actively involved in our lives. And there was an expectation that I would go to college, and I have, and I've had their support ever since, along with my dad and my stepmom and other members of my family as well. But I am privileged, and I do have access to, or have had access to, different resources and different relationships than others. So it's not that I don't deserve to be here, but there are a lot of people who also deserve to be here who didn't have access to the same thing.
Yes.
That doesn't diminish what I've accomplished, but I think you're talking about it, which I think is fantastic. And that's part of the responsibility we have, is just to recognize it and to talk about it. And then to the extent in our work, in our volunteer or community activities, to the extent that we can recognize that there may be people that we come into contact with that make us uncomfortable because they don't have the same upbringing we do. They don't look like us or act like us or talk like us or whatever it is that makes us uncomfortable, which is a very human reaction, right? We back in the day belonged to tribes, and feeling comfortable with the people who were in our tribe was part of how you stayed safe. And so there are evolutionary reasons why we gravitate towards people who look and act the same way that we do, but there are real consequences to that. And so I think just being aware of that and doing what you can to overcome that sense of discomfort and actively reach out to people that maybe you wouldn't normally gravitate towards, I think is a way of helping develop relationships, develop connections, and maybe in the future you can help provide opportunity to people that wouldn't otherwise have had it. I don't know. I
completely agree. I think all we can do is say, this is the reality. This is what we look at. And I see the disparity here. I see the difference.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's all sorts of holes that people could poke in what I just
read. Please, of course. And me too, right? And like,
it's uncomfortable.
It all comes from such a place of love and wanting to do better. And I think as long as I can stand behind anything that I've said publicly or otherwise, like, I came from a place of really good intention. I am open to learning.
Yeah. Tell me where I'm wrong. And thank you for pointing it out. Yes.
And I will do better.
Yes.
Know better, do better. We say that all of the time at our house.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about being a working mom. Sure. And you have a different setup with a stay-at-home dad.
Yep.
I'd be curious to know if you'd share a little bit about how that kind of unfolded. Was that always the arrangement?
Yeah.
And how you navigate that, because I think it's a testament to everybody involved that, my husband likes to say, oh gosh, this quote just completely slipped my mind. Basically going against the grain is a decision only of the brave.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to do something not typical.
It has taken a lot of intention. It wasn't always the plan. I've always been very career oriented and very driven from a career perspective. My husband actually graduated with a math and chemistry degree in undergrad, and he did consulting for a little while, and he hated it. Hated the commute, didn't enjoy the work. It just wasn't really a good fit. So he went back to school after we met each other, and got his degree in culinary arts. And so he then became a chef at the Peninsula Hotel for a period of time. He worked at a restaurant in Oak Park, which is where we live, Oak Park, Illinois, for a period of time. When we decided to have a child, it just made sense that he would be the one who would stay home with her. He was willing to do it. He was excited about it. He takes it very seriously, and it works for us. And he's a fantastic, very committed, very devoted. All stay-at-home parents are fantastic, right? There's a
Yes.
there's a level of commitment there that I have a lot of respect for. It's a very difficult job. Working in parenting is a difficult job as well, but he is a fantastic stay-at-home parent, and our daughter is very lucky. I'm very lucky to have him as a supporter and enabler of my career, and our daughter is very lucky to have him as a stay-at-home parent.
When I found out I was pregnant with Lexi, it was intentional. Obviously, she was wanted, very much so, and I had shaped my career at that point so that I could work the way that I wanted to work. And then when George and I got married and we had 3 additional children, things became it was a challenge, because I was working as much as I could work and what felt good for me. But there was a lot of the day that he would just miss.
Yeah.
Working an 8 to 5:30, plus a commute, plus outside expectations, plus limited vacation times, plus.
Yeah.
And so when we made that call, and he was, he was really excited about the opportunity of, he's going to come in and we're going to partner on this business together. And he does varied things within the company. We have a very partner relationship in it, but it unlocked a lot of opportunity to be around the kids more, have that. And, making that decision, it was a tough one, because socially it was like, so you're going to step away from a career that you've been building for X number of years with real, prestige. And I use that in air quotes, and all of this. And it's like, well, yeah, because what matters most to me is not having, X number of initials after my name, and talking to my kids' friends at the soccer game about who's their financial advisor. That I don't want to do that. But there was a whole lot involved in going your own way.
Yeah, there is. And kudos to you guys for having that conversation about what works for your family. It is a very personal decision and a very personal conversation. And I think the challenge is that there's historically been one traditional approach that has worked. And then there became 2. It was either the dad works and the mom stays at home, was the first traditional approach. And then the second one that became acceptable was both parents work. And those were really the only 2 models that were available, but that doesn't work for a lot of people, and it doesn't work for a lot of kids. So for every family to just discount what's socially acceptable and figure out what works for them is a very hard thing, but it's an adulting thing. It is. It's what matters to us, and how can we align our behavior with our values and what matters to us. We're willing to have a little less financially. We have plenty, but we're willing to have a little less financially in order for James to be at home. And we think that trade-off is more important for us. That aligns with our values. And it works very well for us. And once you get comfortable with that, it's easier to stand behind the decision that you've made.
Absolutely.
I also think living in an environment where that's acceptable helps. So having our family structure and living someplace where stay-at-home dads are just never done would be harder than living where we do in Oak Park, Illinois, where there are a lot of stay-at-home dads and a lot of non-traditional family structures. So that does make it a little easier because it's not viewed as weird as much as it might be in other places.
Definitely. I think having a model, I think that's why podcasts and other forms of media are so important, because when you have a model, you can see somebody has done it. It gives you permission not just to do it the way they've done it, but to say, I could do it my own way too.
Right. Whatever works for you. And that's not going to look like my family or like your family. It's
exactly
like whatever your family needs to look like. And that's okay.
Sharada, I've loved this conversation so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I want to be respectful. I know we've got to wrap up. I've got a lightning round of questions for you.
Okay.
What is your go-to jam when you need to up your energy?
So I grew up in the country, and country music is in my blood. It's not very women's empowerment friendly. So I have built a Pandora station that has all the kick-ass women country singers, and that is my go-to jam.
Nice.
Yep.
What time do you wake up?
5:30.
What's breakfast look like?
Either a smoothie or wheat toast with peanut butter.
What is a favorite ritual you have?
Eating dinner with my family every night.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
What is a book you've given the most?
Good to Great.
What can someone do to help you feel appreciated?
A pat on the back, a thank you, high five.
Awesome. Where can people find you online?
LinkedIn. I'm the only Sharada Sullivan, as far as I know.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can't wait for people to learn more about you and to see how you're doing this.
Thanks for having this podcast. I've really enjoyed listening to it and really appreciate being a guest.
Awesome.